Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I decided today to talk about the F-16A. This is the Block 10 Fighting Falcon, and recently it went down in BR. It went from 12.7 to 12.3, and the basic reason why is because this vehicle doesn't have anything apart from IR guided missiles, so it really limits it in terms of what it can do on the battlefield. And the reason I decided to finish spading it is because of that. I wanted to see how it felt in the current meta, obviously with 12.0 being very strong with the F4S and also many friends, so the F-16A kind of giving another kind of string to the bow, I think is probably what I want to say. So when it comes to the vehicle, I already had it 50% spaded, and then I just stopped playing it. The reason for it is because active radar homing missiles came in, and it just became untenable to actually play the thing, because you are so limited in the kind of distance that you can engage stuff at the BR. So I got most of the performance upgrades and then was like, you know what, I'm good. Like it wasn't very fun having to dodge a bunch of missiles, not just from actives, but also semi-actives, where you can't actually fight back because you are so limited in your range. And what I decided now, since they put up a lot of the active radar homing stuff, they've also, with the semi-active stuff, I've definitely personally got a lot better at dodging it in terms of like what to do. And the big thing that I ended up doing with the vehicle is getting an expert crew on it. And this vehicle, and I think pretty much everything nowadays at like rank 7 or rank 8, really needs an expert crew, which just sucks. Like it means that you have to pay another million SL on top of, the SL that you've already paid in order to have a vehicle that turns properly. Because so many of these vehicles now turn so extremely, if you don't have the expert crew, your pilot's just going to keep getting knocked out over and over and over again, and you're going to fight so many people who won't get knocked out because they have the expert crews. Generally, I would say you can get away with it at lower BRs. Anything like 9.0 and below, unless you're playing very specific vehicles, you can, just kind of swip and dip and be fine and just understand how to reset your overload. But at these higher BRs, especially with things like the F-16, you need to have the expert crew because you're going to be pulling so hard to get away from missiles and also to be able to get stuff on target. So my general kind of playstyle in the F-16 was pretty simple. You have to wait until the initial engagement happens, people have fired their semi-actives, and then you have to go in as a secondary to go after people who are dogfighting with your AIM-9Ls. It works pretty well. I was able to get a bunch of kills doing this and also carry some matches doing this. The 6 AIM-9Ls definitely help with this type of playstyle, but the problem that I have is that is the only thing you can do, and that's because of the weaponry and also why this thing went down in BR. I know a lot of people are going to be annoyed that this thing went down in BR, but when you have vehicles that have access to more options of weaponry, more options of playstyles than this thing, which are lower BRs, you are you can counter it pretty easily if you actually want to, and that kind of is annoying when you're actually playing the thing. When a vehicle has this problem where you can only really play it one way, very similar to a lot of SPGs in ground or very similar to a lot of coastal vehicles in naval, it means that once people realize what you have to do, they can counter it super easily. And it just really sucks, especially in air, because of the distance, right? The distance is the key thing. An AIM-9L with the speed of the F-16 is usually useful up to about 4 kilometers at most. Then, depending, of course, where the enemy is and depending on many other things. But when it comes to other vehicles, usually with their semi-actives, they are useful up to about 10 kilometers, maybe a bit more depending on the semi-active, but mostly 10 kilometers to 8 kilometers. And if you can keep radar lock, then you're good to go. So you are outdistanced by double, and you have to close that distance, which can happen super fast with this thing. And also, with the maneuverability, you can outmaneuver semi-actives, but the problem with it is this. Once you start going in a defensive maneuver with this thing, of course you bleed speed and everything like that. That gives the energy advantage to the enemy, and therefore you have to use your maneuverability to beat the enemy, which you can do in the F-16, but it's nowhere near as easy as just doing the opposite, which is basically sitting there and just firing missiles at you, which is what most people end up doing. The other part of it is, once again, this thing has ridiculously expensive rank 4 modifications, and that doesn't really matter too much in Air Realistic, apart from one of them is the engine modification, which is needed to once again get this thing going. The other two modifications are the GBU-8s and the AGM-65B, so if you want to use this thing in ground forces, you're going to have to grind it all the way out to be able to get access to those things, and it's going to take a while to do that, which kind of sucks. But if you want to use it in air, you know, the AIM-9Ls are rank 3, and all of the flight performance ones are pretty close together, so it's not too hard to kind of sort out. So if you get this thing to like 40% spaded, 50% spaded, you're usually good to go with kind of how it feels. Always run the external fuel tank as well. This thing burns through so much fuel, it's pretty nuts. And generally when you fight with it, you want to have at least some fuel on board. I know you want to be like super maneuverable and everything like that, but you need some to extend the game, because when you face most of the vehicles you face, they can extend the game by just running away and using missiles from range. So you have to be able to chase them with your good acceleration and also good speed. The radar on this thing is also really good. Like that is something which is really nice. You can actually slave the AIM-9Ls to the radar as well, which, you know, is something that some of the Sidewinders get. And the RWR is also very strong, and it can tell you when, you know, stuff is coming in. It can tell you when you're being locked. Overall, I had a fantastic time with the RWR. It meant that positioning in the game was a lot easier to do compared to other vehicles. Of course, the Vulcan is the Vulcan. It's always going to be good. Easily the best kind of jet gun that you have in the game, apart from maybe a few others, but most are incredibly good. So the overall experience of this F-16 was great. Like I had a fantastic time flipping it around, going a bit crazy. It just, the agency problem was here again, and this is a problem with a lot of the machines around. You don't have the agency to control the battlefield like you do in other vehicles because of, you know, the overall setup of the guns and also the missiles. And what this vehicle really did for me is it basically made me want to play the ADF. Like, because the ADF is basically just this one, but it's more designed around having the AIM-7Ms as well. So you have that semi-active component, meaning that you can extend the battlefield. Whereas the A version, it's more multi-role. It has access to the guided bombs and the Mavericks and also the dumb bombs. So I'm super happy I've ground this one out in Air Realistic, but it's definitely going to be one that I use in ground, and it's just made me want more of the same platform, but with just better munitions. And at least from an S perspective, that is what the ADF is. So that's what I think I'm going to have a bit of fun with. We ended up playing 79 battles in this thing, 130 air kills, 50 deaths, and then 50 ground kills, so 53% win rate overall, which I'm pretty happy with. The games go by so quickly nowadays at this BR. Like, you basically get no bonuses for like the length of the game, so it's all based around your actions in it, which is pretty nuts to think about. But I suppose shouldn't be too surprising at the end of the day. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.